शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यस् नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. So today Pullayar has taken over the first place. So we had completed the first shloka, which has 9 namas with the previous class, and we barely entered the second shloka. We will chant the second shloka once. Putatma Paramatma cha Muktanam Paramagatihi Avyayah Purushas Sakshi Kshetrajñokshara eva cha. We have completed 9 namas as we saw with the first shloka. Just to recall the 9 namas, the first nama was Vishwam, second nama Vishnuhu, the third nama Vashatkaraha, and for Vashatkaraha Shankara gave 4 meanings, we saw that. And then the fourth nama is Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhuhu. This entirely is one nama. And then the fifth nama is Bhuta Krit. And the sixth one is Bhuta Brit. The seventh nama is Bhavaha. And the eighth one is Bhutatma. The fourth Bha, no? Bhutatma. Bha. It's not Bhutatma, it is Bhutatma. It's pronounced with an aspiration. And the ninth nama is Bhuta Bhavanaha. Why did I stress so much on the eighth nama? Because pronunciation could be confused with the 10th nama. Eighth nama is Bhutatma, and the 10th nama or the first nama of the second shloka is Bhutatma. Okay, so the meaning is different when you say Bhu and Pu. When you say Bhutatma, when you said Bhutatma, what was the meaning that we saw? He is the Antaryami of every being. He is the very I of every being. I, capital I, not this I, okay? When we say Bhutatma, Putaha means pure. Puta means pure, and Atma means the self. So when you say Bhutatma, it means pure self. He is the pure self. Though he is in the form of everything that is manifested, and everything that is manifested includes the mind also, the body and the mind, and the body and the mind are subjected to impurities, it doesn't mean that he is impure. Though he has manifested as the body and the mind, he is unsullied by the defects of the body and the mind. He is unaffected by the defects of the body and the mind. For example, gold. Gold is unaffected if the jewelry is broken or the jewelry is bent or if the jewelry goes out of shape. Because gold, though it manifests as the jewelry, it is free from the defects of the jewelry. Similarly, though Bhagavan has manifested as my own body and mind, he is free from the defects of this body and mind, or every body and every mind. This is Bhutatma, the pure self. That was the 10th Nama. And the 11th Nama is Paramatma. Paramatma means Para Atma. Para meaning the highest or the limitless. Para Atma. Atma means self. Para Atma means he is the self that is free from all limitations. Now, when we say all limitations, what are the kinds of limitations that we can have? Limitations are of three categories. Space wise, one can be limited. Any object, any created entity can be limited space wise. Space wise limitation, time wise limitation, and the third category is object wise limitation. In Sanskritam, if we have to say, Deshataha parichinnam, Kalataha parichinnam, Vastutaha parichinnam. What is meant by space wise limited? If this object is here, it is not there. If I am here, I am not at home. If you are all at your home, then you are not here. And those who have come here are not there elsewhere. Therefore, any created entity is limited space wise. If it is there in one place, it is not there in the other place. This is called space wise limitation or Deshataha parichinnam. What is time wise limitation? Time wise limitation means if it exists at one point in time, it does not exist at another point in time. All of us have a date of birth, which means this body did not exist before that date of birth and will not exist after an X date of birth, which none of us are aware of. We are not Parikshit. Parikshit was lucky to know when was his last date. None of us know, it is kept as a secret. So you don't know how many more days are left, no, before it is over. In Amazon Prime, you can check your Prime membership and you can say so many days left for you to renew the membership. But how many more days left in your human membership, human lifetime, nobody knows. We don't have the privilege to know. Therefore, use every minute wisely. This is called Kalataha parichinnam, time-wise limitation. Every created entity has. And the third category of limitation is Vastutaha parichinnam. This is a pot. This is a clip. Pot is not a clip. Clip is not a pot. And this pot is brown in color. This clip is, I don't have enough to contrast. Okay, maybe this bottle. This pot is brown in color and this bottle is blue in color. Brown is not blue. Blue is not brown. This is called Vastutaha parichinnam or object-wise limitation. If you say this is one kind of object and you give its definition, either it's by way of its form or color, it is not the other entity. So it is limited by the pot is limited by the bottle is limited by the pot. because pot cannot be bottle. But Paramatma does not have all these three limitations. That means what? He is not deshataha parichinnam, means deshataha aparichinnam. Right? Similarly, he is not limited by time. Limited by time means kalataha parichinnam. Not limited by time means kalataha aparichinnam. And he is not limited by object also, which means he is vastutaha api aparichinnam. How come he has this privilege of being limitless by way of space, time, and object? Because he is the cause of not only the objects but also of the very space and time itself. Therefore, he who manifested as every object in this creation had also manifested, even before the objects were manifested, he has manifested as the space and time. Therefore, he is everywhere. Deshataha aparichinnam. He was, is, and will remain to be. Therefore, he is kalataha also aparichinnam. And because he is the cause, the material cause of every object, he is in the form of every object itself. Therefore, vastutaha also he is aparichinnam. Therefore, Paramatma means the one who is free from all these three forms of limitation. Every nama in Vishnu Sahasranama is worth meditating. It is so beautiful to meditate. And as we see every nama feels like there is a Mahavakya hidden inside. No? Every nama unfolds the Mahavakya. That is how I feel. When we talk of the cause of every object, we saw that cause is of two types, right? From two angles we can talk about cause. One is from the material angle and the other is from the intellect perspective. So you have a material cause and you have an intellect cause or an intelligent cause. When we talk about cause and effect, when we say clay is the cause of pot, so clay becomes the material cause and the potter is the intelligent cause of this pot. Similarly, we saw Bhagavan is the cause, the material cause of this universe and also the intelligent cause of this universe. And he being one, being both the material and the intelligent cause, it is called Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam. We saw this in the initial few classes. Now, when we talk of the relationship between the cause and the effect, cause and effect has a relationship. When we talk about their relationship, Shastra uses a technique called Adhyaropa Apavada Nyayaha. Adhyaropa Apavada Nyayaha. To understand this at the beginner level, Shankaracharya, in one of his texts called Aparoksha Anubhuti, introduces this method. And so we all follow this method to introduce this Adhyaropa Apavada, this methodology of Adhyaropa Apavada to beginners. It is in 4 steps. Okay, the first step is you introduce a product. You introduce the product to the person. because the product is something that is known. So we will go with the example, the traditional example itself. Step 1 is we introduce the product. This is a pot. This is a pot. So this is the first step. Now Shastra expects that you should ask a question, a follow up question from the first point. If you don't ask, Shastra will itself prompt you to ask. Shastra will say, ask what is the cause. If a product is there, from where did it come? Ask that question. So when the question is, what is the cause? The answer is the second step. The cause of this pot is clay. Therefore, first step is, I told you 4 steps are there. So the first step is introducing the product. The second step is introducing its cause. Okay. Now, Shastra goes to the third step. Third step means it will be a little high, no? So Shastra says, now you examine this product. You had known that clay is the cause of this pot, which is the product, and you examine this pot and see what is there is only clay. There is no other entity but for clay. It is only clay that makes up this product. Inside, outside, up, down, everywhere, there is no other entity other than clay. Therefore, Shastra says, there is no product at all, there is no pot at all other than clay. Extending this example to form the rule, what rule can you form? There is no effect other than the cause. Right? There is no effect other than the cause. This is the third step. So what have you done? You have negated the effect, the product. Because you have told what exists is only the cause. Therefore, where is the entity called as the product or the effect? There is no second entity. Therefore, the product has been negated. And you say what exists is only the cause. This is step 3. Now, step 4 is the final step and the last step. So, it will be the highest step, no? Step 4 says, you have told that in step 3, what did you say? You told what exists is only the cause and there is no product, there is no second entity. So, what you call as the cause, okay? Now, when product itself does not exist, why do you say cause? The causal status does not exist. Right? I exist as a teacher only when there are students in front of me. When there are no students in front of me, the teacher status on me is not there. Right? Similarly, when there is no product, the causal status of the clay is negated. Remember, clay is not negated. In step 3, pot was negated. In step 4, clay is not negated, but the causal status of the clay is negated. To recap, the first point is introduce the product. The second point, introduce its cause. Third point, you examine the product and say there is no product other than the cause. Therefore, product is negated. The fourth point, you say, because the product is negated, cause does not have the status of cause because there is no product to call itself as a cause. Okay? So, the first 2 steps are called Adhyaropaha, the introduction stage. And the second two steps are called Apavadaha, the negation stage. Okay, why are we talking about this in Bhutatma now? We are supposed to be in the 11th Nama, Paramatma. Why are we talking about this in Paramatma? Because Shankara says, Paramatma, he said, he who is free from all 3 categories of limitation. And then Shankara says, Paramatma simply means Karya Karana Vilakshanam Brahma. That's all. One line he writes and he stops. So much of explanation is required to understand what Karya Karana Vilakshanam means. Therefore, pot we have negated and the causal status of clay has been negated. Therefore, clay is not the product and is not the cause as well. Clay is clay. That's all. Similarly, Bhagavan, who has manifested as this universe. Step 1, universe exists. Okay, we will take it step by step. Universe exists, introduction of the product. Now step 2, where did this universe come from is the question. The answer is Paramatma. Paramatma manifested as this universe. He is the material cause of this universe. Step 3, this is step 2 over. So introduction stage is over. Adhyaropa is over. Now step 3 is Apavada. In Apavada stage, the first part is, step 3 is what? Because Paramatma only appears as this universe, has only manifested as this universe, there is no second entity called the universe. It is only Paramatma everywhere. There is no second entity called universe. Therefore, universe, the names and forms are negated. Negated means it doesn't mean that you have to break the pot to say there is nothing other than clay. You don't have to break the pot to say, only clay is there. There is no other entity. No need. You can continue to use the pot, and in your knowledge, you can understand that what exists is only clay. You can still use the pot. Therefore, all these Nama Rupas in this universe have utility. They have beauty. They have a novelty. Everything is fantastic. It is so nice to enjoy them, use them. Fine. But what is their stuff? What is their content? It is only Paramatma, and there is no second entity. Therefore, all the products are negated as good as non-existence. This is the third step. The product is negated. The fourth step, therefore, Karya Vilakshanaha. Product has been negated. The fourth stage is, because there is no product, clay is not the cause. Similarly, because this universe product does not exist, the cause, Paramatma, does not exist as the cause. We don't say Paramatma doesn't exist. Be very careful. Okay? Otherwise, you will jump into Shunyavada. Okay? So, Paramatma doesn't exist as the cause. Therefore, Karana Vilakshanaha. So, who is Paramatma? He is Karya Karana Vilakshanam Brahma. Very good. This is the 11th Nama, Paramatma. The 12th Nama is Muktanam Paramagatihi. This second shloka totally has 8 namas, and we are in the third of the 8 nama. 10th, 11th and 12th nama, no? We are in the 12th nama. Overall 12th nama. Muktanam Paramagatihi. Muktanam Paramagatihi means he who is the ultimate and the highest goal for all the muktas. He is the highest goal for all the muktas. Muktas means who? Those who have already accomplished moksha. And his nama is, he is the highest goal. That means what? That means those who have attained moksha, for all those who have gained moksha, there is no further goal to be achieved. There is no further end to be achieved. Now this should ring a bell. If it doesn't ring a bell, I will ring a bell for you. This has the link to the question of Yudhishthira, Kim Vapyekam Parayanam. Okay, which is the Param Ayanam, or which is the highest goal of human beings? That is what he asked. Bhishma answered there, and this Nama reminds Yudhishthira of the answer to his question. Said, you asked no, so this is the answer. He is Muktanam Paramagatihi. And this is a goal which, once attained, there is no question of losing it. What a wonderful goal! Once you have attained this goal, there is no further travel, there is nothing more to be achieved, and also there is no question of losing it also. What a fantastic goal, what a fantastic destination. So there is no further journey, there is no further travel, means there is no rebirth. For those who have studied Bhagavad Gita, you can recall chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Mamupetya punar janma. Sorry. Mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. Mam upetya, having attained me, there is no further rebirth. There is no rebirth at all. Free from samsara. Punarjanma means samsara. So one is freed from all the sorrows in life. And also in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, he says, Yad gatva, how does it come? Yad gatva na nivartante tat dhama paramam mama. Having attained, there is no going back. Yad gatva na nivartante tat paramam dhama, the highest abode. Who is the highest abode? That is me. Having attained me, there is no question of losing me at all. So, how do you say there is no more sorrow? If your sorrow that you experience here is real, if the sorrow that you as a human being experience in your human life, any sorrow that you experience as a human being in this life, suppose you consider it to be real, and suppose if it is really real, what will happen? If it is real, it cannot be negated, it will always be there, right? It is real, no, it will not go. Even if you attain highest or that which is the greatest, it cannot go. So, but Bhagavan says it will go. That means your sorrow, if sorrow can be negated, then it cannot be real, no? Freedom from sorrow is possible only if sorrow is unreal. Freedom from sorrow is not possible if sorrow is real. Our problem is we don't understand the meaning of the words real and unreal. If something is real, then it will remain. It is real because it is real. It is not imagination. If something can be negated, you can be freed of it, then it is unreal. You get caught in the police for pickpocketing. Okay? What a shame. You were caught red-handed. And when the police has handcuffed you and is dragging you to file a suit, to file the FIR, you woke up from the dream when the alarm rang and you just realized that you are late for office. Okay, so the sorrow, the fear that you experienced when the police handcuffed you, if it was real, you cannot negate it. You cannot be free of it. But it was not real. Therefore, you were instantly freed. How you were instantly freed? When you woke up from the dream, You came to know that there was no police, there was no pickpocketing, and you were not a thief. Okay? So, similarly, Shastram says, similarly, what you experience, all the sorrow that you experience in this Jagrata Avastha is also like the sorrow that you experience in the dream. It is also very, very similar. How? How do you say it is similar? I experience it. I experience it so intimately, so really. Shastra says, though you experience it, it is as though real. Because while in dream, you said the same thing. You felt the same thing. While in dream, you felt it was real. But you had to wake up to Jagrat Avastha to know, to see the fact that what you experienced was not real. Similarly, when you wake up to knowledge of yourself, to the knowledge of Ishvara, you will see that all the sorrow that you experience even in this awakening state is unreal. All right. Therefore, when we talk about, when Shastra talks about attaining, Mam Upetya, Mam Upetya Punarjanma, we saw the example from Bhagavad Gita, having attained me, Krishna says. So, attaining can only be a figurative attaining, because when he is everywhere, where should I travel? How long should I travel to attain him? It has to be instant, it has to be here and now, right? Otherwise, I am making the infinite Ishvara as finite. In my understanding, I am getting the understanding of Ishvara wrong. Right? I am subjecting him to finitude. He who is Paramatma, he who is Deshataha, Kalataha, and Vastutaha, Aparichinnam, I am making him Parichinnam. Right? Therefore, attaining Ishvara, I need not travel anywhere. It has to be here and now. And he is the highest abode. Attaining him, attaining, double quotes, okay? Attaining him, there is nothing further to attain. Everything else is set to be attained. That is the meaning. Muktanam Paramagatihi. The 13th nama is Avyayaha. Avyayaha means free from any form of decline or destruction. Vyaya means change. Change includes decline and destruction also. Bhagavan is avyayaha, meaning he does not undergo any change. Therefore, he is not subject to any sort of decline or destruction. There is another word with which Shastram refers to Bhagavan when it means to communicate avyayaha. It says avinashi. And we can see this word a couple of times in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What can be destroyed is that which is subject to change or modification, that which is subject to vyayaha, that which undergoes a change. And what can be vyaya? What can undergo change or modification? Only that which has a form. How do you report modification? Modification is reported with respect to the form, with respect to any aspect of the form, any attribute in the form. Right? So, that which does not has a form is not subject to destruction. One who is free from form, he who is formless, therefore is not subject to change, therefore is not subject to destruction. A simple relative example can be gold and the jewelry. Jewelry has a form. Gold does not have a form of its own. It is formless. I mean, relatively formless. Okay, with respect to jewelry, gold is relatively formless. That's why we go with this example. Do not extend this example, it will be confusing. Okay, so Nama Rupa, the form of the jewelry can change. Bangle, you go and give it to the shopkeeper and you change it to a chain. And then you give back the chain and then you change it to a necklace. You give back the necklace and you make many rings. You make an earring. So the form can change. The form is destroyed. Form is subject to modification. Whereas that which is formless is not subject to destruction or change or modification. Therefore, Bhagavan, who is formless, is not subject to destruction, means not subject to change, means an important corollary from this is he is not a parinami karanam. Very important, because there are one group of people, the Vishishtadvaitis, who consider Bhagavan to be Parinami Karanam. Parinami Karanam means Bhagavan has modified into this universe, just like how milk modifies into curd. Similarly, Bhagavan undergoes modification to become this world. No, Bhagavan has not undergone any modification or change to become this world. We saw that the third stage is he appears as this world. You remember CBA in the introduction class? He is the creator of this universe. Then he became this universe, and the third stage of understanding is he did not become, he appears as this universe. Therefore, Bhagavan, being formless, being not subject to any form of modification or destruction, he is not the Parinami Karanam. He is Para Atma, who is not subjected to any change or Parinamam. Without undergoing any change, he remains as he is. This is the 13th Nama, Avyayaha. 14th Nama, Purushaha. Purushaha. Beautiful Nama. This Nama will appear one more time in Vishnu Sahasranama as the 406th Nama. Okay, there it will have a different meaning. We will see there. Okay, so here as the 14th Nama and the 406th Nama, both are Purusha, but we saw that because the meanings are derived differently, it is not subject to Punarukti dosha or the error of duplication. We saw this in the immediate introduction to the Sahasranama. Here for Purusha, Shankaracharya gives 6 meanings. Very beautiful. 6 meanings he gives. Purusha means, the first meaning is one who lies or one who dwells in the city of body. The indweller of the city. Puram means city. Puram refers to Shariram. Puram, Shariram, Tasmin Shete iti Purushaha is the definition of the first meaning. That is how the first meaning is arrived at. The indweller of this body, because he is the indweller of this body, he is called Purushaha. This is the first meaning. The second meaning is Puru eva asititi Purushaha. He who existed even before everything else came into existence. He was always there even before everything else came to existence or came to manifestation. Puru eva asit iti Purushaha. That is what is the meaning. The third meaning is anything in this creation that has glories, that has mahima, that has excellence, that has a greatness. Anything that has greatness, glories, excellence, mahima, whatever, vibhuti, All that is Ishvara. Anything great that you come across is Ishvara. If you talk about MS Dhoni's capacity or his captaincy in the Chennai Super Kings, that is the Mahima of Ishvara. It is not an individual's glory, it is the glory of Ishvara manifested in the individual. If you talk about Sachin Tendulkar, or if you talk about any actor who is able to act well, who is able to deliver his role well, or any person who wins the beauty contest, any woman or any man, it is rare that men are spoken about. You still have Mr. Universe and Mr. World and all, I think. Yes, no? But yeah, it's there. But I don't think they are not popular at all. Yeah, they spend more time building their body and all. At least we should talk about them when you see their name in the newspaper. At least nobody remembers any of their name even on the day they win the award. All right, so any mahima, any greatness, any glory you see, you come across, that is Ishvara. And interestingly, one entire chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan talks about all the great and glorious things. He says, Arjuna, I am this, I am that. Adityanamaham Vishnuhu, Jyotisham Raviramshuman, Marichirmarutamasmi, Nakshatranamaham Shashi. So every aspect he takes, every section, and he tells Arjuna, all these are only samples, okay? Don't think this is the exhaustive list. This is only an indicative list. There is no way to give you a complete list of all my glories. And whatever glory you experience, first know that it is my glory, and secondly know that mama tejomsha sambhavam. Know that it is only a small spark in the whole agni of my glory. So such is my glory. Therefore, this is the third meaning. Purusha means Purushu Utkarshashalishu Sidati iti Purushaha. All the glories, everything that is glorious is Purusha, is Ishvara. The fourth meaning is the one who gives results, who gives abundant results, whether it is material results or anything. If you go and ask him for anything, he will give you. You go and pray to him, you ask him, he will give you. So he gives you abundance of results, and he also gives you the result which is the greatest, which is moksha, the limitless. This is the fourth meaning. Purusha means giver of abundance of result and the giver of the limitless result. Puruni phalani sanoti dadati iti purushaha is the definition. 4 meanings up of 6 meanings. One who indwells the body is Purusha. One who existed before everything else came into existence, that is Purusha. And then all glories are his glories, that is Purusha. The fourth one is he is the giver of abundant results and also the giver of that result which is the greatest or the limitless. Now the fifth one is Purusha means he is the destroyer of the world at the time of Pralaya. Puruni Bhuvanani Samhara Samaye Syati Antam Karoti iti Purushaha. He who finishes up at the time of Pralaya, the destroyer of this world. The last meaning Shankara gives here is Puranat Sadanadva Purushaha. He who pervades every being and things, and he also resides in them. He pervades them and he resides in them. Therefore, he is the material and he is also the indweller. He is the container and he is also the content. Puranat sadanadva purushaha. This is the sixth meaning. He pervades and he resides. Beautifully it is said, then bhaktanam hridayam purayati iti purushaha. In the hridayam of every bhakta is pervaded by him and he indwells every heart of every bhakta. And when we talk of bhakta, Ishvara fills up the heart of every bhakta and he resides in the heart of every bhakta. What kind of bhakta? We saw that there were 4 types of bhakta: Artha bhakta, Artharthi bhakta, Jignasu bhakta, and Jnani bhakta. Now we will categorize these 4 into 2. Artha Artharthi is one group, and we will take Jignasu and Jnani as the other category. So when we talk of Artha Artharthi bhakta, they pray to Ishvara to take care of the unknown variables, right? Either when they are in trouble or when they need something, some improvement. Why do they pray to Ishvara? Because they understand that certain things are beyond their capacity to achieve the desired result. Therefore, they pray to Ishvara to clear the obstacles, the hidden variables, to take care of the hidden variables and make it favorable to them so that they achieve the desired result. This is what an Artha Artharthi Bhakta does through prayer. What about Jignasu and Jnani Bhakta? Everybody prays to Ishvara to remove hidden obstacles. There is no mistake in that. Everybody does that. In fact, one who recognizes the fact that there are hidden variables and only Ishvara can clear them up for me is an intelligent person. One who thinks or does not consider the hidden variables is not mature, is considered to be immature. And all the prayers, what is the purpose of a prayer? When you have the free will to act and do things, then what is the purpose of prayer? Purpose of prayer is because there are hidden variables. There are invisibles which also have to be handled, and that cannot be handled with any amount of my effort. Why? Because they are invisible, no? I don't know them. Therefore, only the knower of everything can handle it for me. Therefore, I go to him. This is called intelligence. This is why prayers are there. So, Jignasu and Jnani Bhaktas also pray. But when a Jignasu Bhakta, he prays, Jnani Bhakta is an accomplished person. There is nothing to talk about him here in this context. When a Jignasu Bhakta prays, I'm deliberately not explaining who a Jignasu Bhakta is, because we've seen this in detail in one class, and we have also recapped this in other classes. So, when a Jignasu Bhakta prays to Ishvara to remove the hidden variables or the obstacles in achieving a material result, it doesn't mean that he is satisfied with the result itself. It doesn't mean that he considers that material result as the end itself. He is a person who looks up to the material result, all right, but he is fully aware that that particular result or that material accomplishment will not give him total or complete accomplishment, and complete satisfaction, accomplishment is only when he absorbs the knowledge of Ishvara. He receives and assimilates the knowledge of Ishvara. He knows that by whatever he has got, by fulfilling the desires that he intended and he prayed for, it does not fulfill him completely. And he is also aware that there is no greater security other than the knowledge of Ishvara. When he has known Ishvara, he is a Jnani Bhakta. When he is yet to know Ishvara completely, he is Jignasu Bhakta. Until then, he becomes, until knowledge is complete, he is a Jignasu Bhakta. And because Jnani Bhakta, Bhagavan says, Jnani tu Atma eva iti me matam in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Jnani Bhakta is not different from me. He is one with me. So let's not count him. There is no two entities to be counted, right? So one who sees Bhagavan as different from him and is also trying to acquire the knowledge that Bhagavan is not different from him. He is the Jignasu Bhakta, right? So it is said that Jignasu Bhakta is the real Bhakta. Who is a real Bhakta? Jignasu Bhakta is the real Bhakta. Because he prays for material pursuits, all right, but he is not satisfied with simple small things. Right? When entire universe is Ishvara and you pray for one aspect in this universe, it is like asking for one small part of Bhagavan's body. Right? A very, very minute part of Bhagavan's body. Jignasu Bhakta, all right, he transacts and he prays for small things, but what he asks from his heart is not, he is not satisfied with that small thing. He says, I don't want your little finger or ring finger, I want you as a whole. I want you totally. So that is what he prays for. And because he always has this, bears this in mind, in Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, Ananya Bhakti, Avyabhicharini Bhakti. He is always endowed with bhakti on Ishvara. And Bhagavan fills the heart of such a bhakta. Purushaha, one who pervades and one who fills everything in this creation. Having said so, he pervades my heart and he also is the indweller in my heart. He is the Pratyagatma. He resides my heart. Para Atma. And that leads to the 15th Nama, Sakshi, the witness of everything. We will take the meaning of this and the other namas in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.